Hey, my friends, it's Kelly Reeves, and welcome to the Confidence Academy. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Confidence Academy. I am Kelly Reeves, and yesterday I had the opportunity to interview an incredibly fascinating woman, and she's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. She's an expert in the science of bravery, and that's what we talked about, being brave. And so I am doing this intro today, the day after the interview, as opposed to what I normally do the same day. So I look the exact same in the intro as I do in the actual interview. But I really wanted to sit on the interview because it was really powerful for me personally, because I've been dealing with some fears lately and things that have caused me to procrastinate because I've been fearful. And I had to really take some time to reflect on the conversation, because I have times when I have been very fearful to do things. And there have been times when I really leaned in with bravery and confidence and courage. And the episode gave me the opportunity to reflect on all that. So I'm coming here today. This is what imperfection looks like. And like I said, so yesterday when we were doing the interview, when we started, I started to record this intro and I kept messing it up. And I was like, wait, let me start all over. And then I said, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to do the interview and I'll figure out the intro and the outro tomorrow. So that is what it looks like when you get past your perfectionism and realize that what is most important is what was said in the conversation. So I had the opportunity to interview Jill Schulman. As I said, she's a Marine Corps veteran. She's an expert in the science of bravery. She has a master's in applied positive psychology, and she wrote the book, The Bravery Effect. And she is also the founder of the Breakthrough Leadership Group, which is an organizational development firm that focuses on leadership development and cultivating courage and resilience in professional environments. So I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. I know I did. I didn't even record this part the same day, which is why I look completely different than what I do in the interview. I hope you will enjoy it. And here's my interview with bravery expert Jill Schulman. So, Jill Schulman, thank you so much for being here. It is so exciting. And number one, thank you for your service, because how brave is it for a woman to be a member of the military, but I've dated guys in the Marines, so I know it seems to be a little more intense.
It is. And that's actually the reason what attracted me to it. Like, why'd you do the Marine Corps? I'm like, well, because it's the hardest, like the few, the proud. So I know in the Marine Corps, they're trying to recruit to increase the percentage of females, but I don't know that they've been successful yet.
Yeah. So tell us about that journey, because when you decide, so for a woman to join the military, and I know because I mentioned earlier that my mom was a police officer in Atlanta PD.
Wow.
And and that's what led me to the column I mentioned of women in male-dominated industries. So what was that journey to say, number one, I want to serve my country. Two, I know I'm a woman and it's an intimidating space. Three, I'm going to go to the most intimidating part of the military that I could possibly get into. So how was that journey for you?
You know, I think for me, like when I look at something challenging, it is in one way really scary, but it's also really exciting. And so that's where even when people feel like sometimes emotions of being like scared or anxious, sometimes it feels the same way of being excited. So I just saw the thrill of becoming a United States Marine. Like I did have a grandfather who was a United States Marine, so he fought in World War II.
Oh,
he didn't have a really big influence. Like he could never talk about it. So It's like I knew that he had that. It was not until after I was commissioned and I was serving that we actually had conversations about it. But I decided, I grew up in Minnesota and had a great childhood upbringing, but just lived in this little small town. So part of my motivation was, how do I spread my wings, see a different part of the country, explore the world, and do something meaningful? And so I basically applied for a full scholarship on the Marine Corps. And if I was able to be lucky enough to receive one of these scholarships, I could go to school anywhere I wanted to the United States. And then after 4 years of serving, 4 years of earning your degree, then you serve for 4 years. And so I went for it. And it's very similar to an academy appointment. I wanted to go to a regular college because I really wanted to have college fun. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I was very interested in the academy, but I decided to go the ROTC route. So
Right.
I was really looking for an opportunity to spread my wings, explore, do something hard, and then also get my college paid for and to be able to kind of get out of the little small town I grew up in. I think some people, when they grow up in a little small town, they just never want to go anywhere else because they love it so much. So I still love the little small town of Prior Lake, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Love growing up there. My dad still lives in the same house I grew up in, but I just wanted something more. So that was really my motivation to start that journey. Mhm.
Yeah. And it's kind of, well, it takes, I think, bravery also to leave a small town because I grew up in Georgia. And when I finished school in a small town in South Georgia, I moved to New York City. And
Mhm.
so it took a lot of, okay, I'm leaving people behind and a life behind and going into this big, scary place.
Mhm.
So, and I think that as a young age, bravery kind of starts then. So did you have, like, I know you said your grandfather was in the Marines, but were you always like a brave child? Were you always just kind of
You
confident and
know,
courageous?
I don't know. I think I was a very average child. I was kind of a nerd. Like in high school, I was kind of definitely a nerd. Like I was on the speech team. I was like in National Honor Society. I was in like the AP classes. I was an athlete. I was a cheerleader. But like I was never really popular. I was just kind of I think I was a little bit maybe vanilla, which is probably why I wanted to like go out and do something great to feel special. Yeah. So, and the bravery started like, I mean, applying for the scholarship's one of them. And then you get the word that, wow, you earned the scholarship. And then colleges start recruiting you to
Hmm.
use the scholarship at their school. So it was all exciting. And then the day though, that I decided to go to the University of San Diego. I mean, imagine this. I grew up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
When the University of San Diego, which like literally you can see the ocean from the campus, says, if you use our scholarship here, we'll pay for most of your room and board. It was like a done deal. So
Yeah.
when I'm getting on the plane to head to San Diego, like, I'm feeling pretty confident since we're in the Confidence Academy.
Yeah.
But my confidence was shattered within about the first hour of me arriving there.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, I think I thought I had everything, right? I had the academic, I had the leadership, I had the physical, fitness. And then when I arrived at my campus, we had arrived a week before all the other new freshmen coming in. So it was for like Marine Corps or it was Naval ROTC. So all the Navy midshipmen and the Marine Corps option midshipmen and the Marines all came together. But when you arrive, they basically line up, okay, Marines over here, people going to the Navy over here. And then I noticed like, I'm going over here. There's not really many women over here. There's actually only one other woman that went over there. So there's at least two of us. And I just realized how stupid I was to wear the outfit I chose to wear. I was wearing hot pink. I showed up in hot pink silk shorts with cute little pink pumps and the perfectly manicured nails because I wanted to look professional.
Right.
And I just think they had a heyday. So it was kind of a rude awakening. And if you imagine anything you see in the movies about maybe Marine Corps boot camp, you kind of get the picture. And that first day, one of the senior midshipmen, so the seniors in the school were running this orientation, like AKA boot camp. And one of them actually came up to me and told me the very first day, you will never make it as a Marine. And it wasn't with contempt, it was almost with laughter.
Oh.
So that is where my confidence was shattered. I was like,
Oh no, you didn't.
yeah. That's the decision. Like, I mean, you talk about this on your podcast, like you control how the other person makes you feel. So like in that
Right.
moment, right. So what do you do? Like, I mean, obviously it was really hard to hear that. But then you make that decision, like, do I want to keep moving forward? Do I want to go back to Minnesota where it feels safe, right? And I'm just going to be loved and it's going to be easy, or am I going to stay in the challenge? So obviously I stayed because I became a Marine, but it was not easy. I was not confident or very strong in some of the skills that are respected as Marines, specifically physical fitness, for a couple of years. Like even if you think you're fit as a cheerleader or as a tennis player or as a synchronized swimmer in Minnesota, when you start running the hills of Southern California,
Yeah.
with Marines at their pace.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it took me years to build that confidence back where I felt like I'm just as good, if not better, than a lot of my male Marines. It took a while to build that confidence, but part of it is you just got to stick with it and keep trying
Yeah.
and keep growing, and when your competence emerges, your confidence does as well.
Yes. So, sticking with it, and that's the one thing, because I think we're instant gratification
Totally.
creatures. We
Yeah.
want it to work. We want it to be right. We want it to be right now. And if it's not right, then it must be wrong. So,
Yeah.
so it's actually finding that confidence and courage to brave the storm
Mhm.
and to say I'm going to. And I lived in Orange County, so I know those Southern California hills really
Oh yeah, you do.
really
They're
well.
brutal. You're
So
brutal.
so but yeah, so it's when you get to that decision point, like you said, someone says something nasty to you, and it's not just sorry, there's a fly in here. That someone says nasty to you, and it's not just like in that setting, or maybe at work or on social media. And like you said, you have that decision to go A or B.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, from a psychological standpoint, based on your
Mhm.
research and
Mhm.
expertise, how can we, and especially women, if you're in leadership or male dominated industries, how can you not let those words get to you so you can stick with it and not let it tear you down?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so many ways I can go with this. I'd say the first thing that's coming to mind that I want to talk about though is just know in those moments, you have a choice to make a decision. And those decisions that you make, these are decisions you're making for yourself and they matter. You're either going to be telling yourself, like, I can do it, I can overcome, or I won't be able to do it, I'm not enough.
Mhm.
And what message you tell yourself is really important because you tend to believe it. And whatever is in your mind impacts your actions. And then
Right.
your actions really impact that overall sense of pride and self belief. So anytime we're at that crossroads, I look at it this way: it's an opportunity for you to show your character and for
Hmm.
you to bring it.
I love
And,
that.
and to really make the choice seem, I think, more obvious, I put it this way: you have a choice in those moments. Will you move forward with courage or will you retreat or cower?
Mm.
I'm not calling someone a coward, but I can call the
Right.
behavior. If
Right.
there, if something's uncomfortable or if there's fear, and you keep moving forward towards something that is meaningful or is aligned with your values, that is courage. That is bravery. But when there is something really important that's meaningful, it's aligned with your values, and you decide to step back, that is cowering. And
Mhm.
what that does to our pride, our self-confidence, our self-efficacy is so huge. So when those moments come, I almost look at those to savor those moments and say, here's my opportunity. I'm going to step up. So that's just at a very, very high level. From a psychological point of view, there's a lot that I teach on mindset, with as I give keynotes across the country and across the globe, and that is teaching people some of the basics that your listeners may already know, but a lot of people don't know these things. Like for someone who studies psychology, I'm like, this is so basic, but I want to go over these because your
Right.
audience may not know them.
Yes.
So the
Please
first
do.
thing is just realizing there's this thing called a growth mindset. It's so
Mhm.
simple, right? And it's just the belief that my skills and abilities are not fixed. I'm not born with them. So if people believe that, well, I'm just not brave, or I'm just not good at math, or I could never do that, you're telling yourself, like, it is fixed. There's nothing I can do about it. Where a growth mindset is simply understanding the truth, which is the belief that any skill or ability is something that I can change with hard work and effort over time. So I
Right.
can grow, I can get there. It will not be easy. It'll be filled with challenges and stress and adversity. But as long as I put in the work, I can get better. I can do that. So it's just by using the growth mindset, and what Carol Dweck from Stanford, who, is the original, researcher that wrote about growth mindset. She says, just using the word yet.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not a really confident person yet.
Hmm.
It opens the door to possibility. Like, I'm not great at math yet. That little word just makes you think like, oh, well, I can do it. I just got to take the steps forward. Because that's really what we're trying to do when we want someone to be brave or to take that step forward is we're not asking you to climb Mount Everest in a day. We're just asking you how do you take a couple steps forward today.
Right.
And if you just see that little window of opportunity by saying it's possible yet, so that's one of the basic things. And the other research that I tend to cite quite often is the stress as enhancing mindset. Aaliyah Crum, who also was at Stanford, but she was at Yale previously, like her research on mindset. Oh, it's so fascinating. What she has found that if someone believes that stress and challenges are bad for us and we should avoid them, then their reaction to the stress and the challenges will be bad and it will be bad for them.
Right.
But if people believe that stress and challenges are good for them because that's what makes them stronger and more able and more confident, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then they'll actually have a positive response to stress and challenges. So just those two little things, like, that we got to understand, like, I may not be there yet, but I can be. I got to put in the work and the effort. And when I do encounter stress and challenges and adversity along the way, they're a good thing because they're going to make me stronger. So those two little mindset like beliefs, I think, are foundational.
Yeah, and it reminds me when I when I was in New York and I decided to move to LA, and in New York I'd worked in broadcast radio with a very well-known shock jock. We can all know who that is.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I'm 20 something years old. I moved to LA. I think I know everything, like every 20 something does.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into this interview at a PR company, an entertainment PR company. And the owner literally I left the interview crying because I didn't know what I needed to know. And I thought I knew everything. And it was awful. But I got in the car and I'm like, oh my God, I just had my butt handed to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to work in this town again. But, but I actually, as I sat in my car and cried, I was like, no, it's just not meant to be. This is not the right job. This is not the right person to work with. This is, so I, pulled up my big girl panties and I kept going. And lo and behold, maybe less than 10 years later, I founded my own PR agency, and I had that for 22 years. So
yeah, look at you. Yeah. One thing I want to point out what you did there is you just realized, like, okay, I opened up a door, I tried walking through it, and that didn't work out. Right. And then when that is a failure, what our natural reaction should be is not like, oh, I'm not cut out. See, it didn't work. I'm not meant to do that. It's more curiosity.
Right.
Okay. So why didn't that work out? What could I have done differently? Right. So you had that curiosity and you learn from it, and then you move forward so you could eventually, start your own. So, and I think that is one of the other things that I think a lot of people think they have a dream to do something. Like, you have this dream to go to LA and get this job. And usually whenever we have a goal, same thing with me flying out to San Diego from Minnesota, you're like, I got this. This is going to be awesome. So we have that confidence, but this is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. You've probably heard this in psychology, where you start off with really a high level of confidence, but almost no competence.
Right.
So you go in there like you don't know what you don't know. And as soon as you start doing it, you realize, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is so much harder than I thought.
Yeah.
So what happens is our confidence just crashes because it's just not as easy as we thought it would be. We run into early challenges, and sometimes when people get to that, when their confidence crashes, they quit. And this is what everyone needs to know. Like, whenever any skill that you build that takes some time and effort to get into, you're going to start off going like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And then you start it and it's going to suck. It's going to really suck, and it's going to be hard, but you've just got to realize that the path to success is not linear. It's not just like this paved, easy path going up. There's going to be ups and downs. And even part of anticipating the challenges and adversity and knowing they're going to happen is part of preparing yourself. So from a psychological point of view, You're not like going, oh, I thought everything was going to be easy, but you're like, there's going to be some challenges ahead of me. So what you and I experience is what we know in psychology. Like you start off really confident and then it goes down, but if you stick with it, right, you come out the other side. So that's a roller coaster
Yeah.
of development.
Yeah. And yeah, but I think there's also these little like fears that we don't realize we deal with every day. So like self-sabotage is a big
Mm.
topic I'm kind of hot and heavy on right now about how like why do people self-sabotage? And it's because they're afraid of something. So there's one a guy on YouTube that I follow, and he says self-sabotage is a misguided form of self-love because it's in a way to protect you for some fear. So how do people who maybe even unconsciously sabotage themselves because there's some fear? It's a fear of
Yeah.
commitment, fear of like something that's much deeper. So how do they find their bravery and courage in
Yeah.
those deeper things?
Hmm. Well, one thing I want to kind of validate what you're saying is I think, you know, people who end up running away from things they fear, either consciously or subconsciously, that's just normal. And that is the way humans are wired.
Hmm.
It's one of the things in evolutionary biology that helped us survive. When there was a threat, we ran away from it. So
Hmm.
many times when we feel that fear, our natural survival instinct is to like run away from it. So
Hmm.
whether it's conscious or it's subconscious, so that is somewhat normal. However, like in today's modern time, the fears that we're feeling are not life and death. They're usually fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, just a fear of trying something new. So, we have to really look at the different fears that we have and go, is this a fear I should listen to?
Hmm.
Or is this a fear that is not really valid? And this is actually a fear getting in the way of what I really want.
Hmm.
So is this fear serving me to keep me safe from something that's really harmful? Right. Or is this fear something that's holding me back from what I really want? So it's kind of differentiating because not all fear is bad. I mean, we
Right.
shouldn't just be brash and be brave and just go after everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm talking about, and bravery a lot of times isn't just what you think about someone running into a burning building or
Right.
a Marine or a Navy SEAL charging the enemy.
Right.
Those are definitely examples of bravery, but these are some of those
Hmm.
micro moments, that's where I think the self-sabotage happens because people don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
So sometimes examples of either choosing the courage or cowering is someone has an idea at work and they're really excited and they want to share it. And they're trying to get the courage to do it and they want to share the idea. But in the moment, they decide to put their hand down and they don't. That's
Hmm.
the small moment. Or they really want the promotion, but they don't feel confident yet. So they decide to pass and not put their name in for the promotion. Or maybe there's tension in an important relationship with a loved
Hmm.
one or someone at work. And they want to have that difficult conversation to try to solve it, but they choose not to because it's uncomfortable. So those are examples of like little micro moments
Hmm.
of bravery. And honestly, what my book is about, it's called The Bravery Effect, is not the heroic moments of bravery. It's about what are those little moments where I want people to be brave for themselves. I want them to build that habit of bravery day in and day out. Because think about this. Think about the cumulative effect. If day in and day out, there's all those little micro moments and someone decides to cower and to step back instead of step forward with courage,
Hmm.
what does that do to their career,
Right.
to their impact, their success, and how about their self-confidence? Or on the opposite side, and this is why I'm so passionate about sharing the science of bravery, is anyone can learn to be brave. We know this based on empirical evidence. Now, some people have a higher baseline of bravery, like maybe you and me.
Right.
I'm flying to San Diego to become a United States Marine. You're
Yeah.
leaving to go to New York City. So we
Yeah.
might have had a little bit of a higher,
Yeah.
a higher level, but anyone can build that character trait to become higher. And when they do, it has such a profound effect on not even just their success at work and their performance, their impact, but it has effect on their pride and their
Mhm.
self-actualization, like on their happiness and well-being. So I just want people to stop listening to the narrative about, oh, happiness equals comfort. Do what's easy. I see this all over social media, all over TikTok, all over new, and I am here to correct the narrative. Like, please don't choose the easy path.
Yes, correct. Yeah, absolutely. And because it's easy, and I was actually journaling about it this morning about how it's easy. Say you want to get in better shape, go to the gym.
Yeah.
But taking that step and going to the gym, when the easier decision is to just plop down in front on the couch on the TV. So, and it's a fear of, okay, going to the gym. And so there's like those perceived threats. And when I talk about in my self-defense classes, like, okay, there's the real actual physical threat, like you talked about. But then there's these kind of imagined threats that we make this going to the gym or starting a new business or doing whatever, such this big, scary thing. When, because we go through the negative what ifs, and that's our protection mechanism saying, no, just keep yourself safe. Don't do that because it's big and scary, because it's unknown. So it's the courage to venture into the unknown, whether it's a new job, starting a new business, starting a new fitness program, getting into a new relationship with someone. So,
one thing I was going to add to that, you just made me think of this, is in a conversation I had with Dr. Cynthia Puri, she's a professor of psychology at Clemson, and she's a leading researcher on bravery. It's one of the people that I learned a lot from. When she looked more retroactively back at what caused people to be brave, she said, really, one of the motivators is imagining your future if you were not brave in that moment. And so the example she shared with me is someone who is afraid of flying, but their child and grandchildren who are coming live across the country. So she says, when people think of like, okay, what is the alternate if I'm not brave? What is the consequence? Well, then I won't have a relationship. So sometimes trying to elevate the risk of not doing it is a motivator. Or think of the gym, like, as you described, the person that wants to get fit, but then can't get themselves to the gym in the morning. That's what I call people who get stuck in the dreamer state. These are the people who love to talk about goals, and they have New Year's resolutions and they have vision boards, but they don't take any action, right? And one of the things that can get them motivated, there's a lot of things we can do to create that habit. But one of the things is just, thinking about when you wake up in the morning, what is the impact if I don't go today and do it consistently, maybe on my health, on my well-being, or I won't be able to achieve a goal. So that's just it's a lot easier when it's something like traumatic. Like, if there's a burning building with a child inside of it, it's actually pretty easy to be brave, honestly, because my child will die. So most people in that moment will do it. Or I can't see my children across country, but it takes more of that motivation and willpower when your current state is just okay, but you want something that's better because you're not in pain. You're not in a horrible discomfort. This is not fearful to stay. It's just comfortable, but it's kind of blah, right? So, So one thing, another tip is, a lot of times we rely on our motivation and our willpower to get up and do it, right? And we do need to work internally on making sure we have the discipline. In the Marine Corps, we always talk about discipline. So one of the first things is our amount of willpower and discipline. Those cognitive reserves are highest in the morning. So we should attack the day. That's what I teach in my book. That's what I teach to my teenage girls. I'm like, we need to attack the day. So get up. Do not ever press snooze. Because if you press snooze, it's the first thing to set your day up for success. Is you're breaking that promise to yourself. Yeah. There. There's someone at my door. Can we please pause?
Oh, sure.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
There we go.
Okay.
So if the first thing you do in the morning is press the snooze button, you are starting off by breaking a promise to yourself. Right. So that's the first thing is we should all get in the habit. If you set your alarm to get up at 6 a.m. or 5:30 a.m., you did it for a purpose. So jump out of bed, and yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, and then launch into your day and do the hardest thing first, because that's where you're going to have the most motivation.
Right.
But what do most of us do? Sorry, I'm like stuttering here, but what most of us do is we look at our to-do lists and we start off with the easiest things.
Right.
So we start with this easy thing and this easy thing. And then toward the end of the day, now we got the really hard thing, the thing we're putting off and avoiding. And you know what usually happens?
Right.
We don't do it.
Don't do it.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you go to the gym early in the morning and you're on your way home, how you feeling?
Great.
I am a superstar.
Yeah.
I'm gonna crush today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then the days that you press snooze 5 times and you don't get to the gym, you wake up and you're like, oh, I need coffee, So you need to really attack the day. And the other thing in the literature too is you want to try to do everything you can to stoke your motivation, your willpower, and do things in the morning. But you also want to try to create an environment that supports your behavior. So, are you going to join a running club if you want to start running? Because now you're putting yourself in an environment where everyone is running.
Right.
If you want to start running and you hang out with a book club or people who like to game, then you're not putting yourself in an environment where it's going to become the norm. So sometimes you can just insert yourself into an environment where that's what everyone does. So sometimes, choosing a new environment or creating a different environment will really support those behaviors moving forward. So those are a couple. I mean, there's so much science around taking brave action, but those are just a couple of them that come to mind.
Well, and going back to your point, like joining a running club or whatever, the community support, I think, because we're social creatures. We do we care what other people think and do. So when we have those people around us encouraging us, then as opposed to, so this brings me to a question. Say you wanted to start this journey, either a new business or fitness, but the people in your home environment aren't supporting you. How do you find bravery to stand up for yourself and just do it when you have a lot of opposition?
All right. This is where you just fire all your friends and tell your family. I'm totally kidding. No, this is your family, right? So your family is forever. You're not going to change that. But what you can do is what I call in my model, curate a brave tribe. And each of those words has so much thought or intent behind it. So curate. So instead of just hanging out with the people that you've been friends with for a long time or your neighbors with or who you're related to, I want you to go out and go out and curate. Just like if you curate like a wine selection, you're going to be very careful about what am I going to be choosing and it has purpose. So you've got to go out and find the people that you can surround yourself, which will call forth your best. They're going to challenge you. They're going to encourage you. They're going to make sure that you're showing up and moving toward your goals. So, and a lot of times those people are not the people that you currently know. So if someone wants to write a book and their family tells them like, why would you want to write a book? That is so stupid. Like, what do you do, right? Instead, then you find maybe a writing coach. You find a couple people in your network, or you find people in your community that have written books before, and you get in touch with them and say, tell me about your journey. I would love to get some advice. I would love for us to stay in touch so that you can help keep me on track. So if you get your little brave tribe of 4 or 5 people that really care about your success and accomplishing it, now you've got the people that will be encouraging you, and use that word before too. So I love encourage. Encourage is putting courage into someone.
Right.
So curate the brave tribe of people who will encourage you, not people that'll say, don't be hard on yourself. Don't write. Let's just go drink.
Yeah.
Let's go game. Right. No, you want the people that'll say, no. We are not stopping. You promised yourself you're going to write 500 words. You know what? I came over to have wine with you, but I'm going to wait. Go ahead and finish those 500 words. Like, you want the people that are going to hold your feet to the fire. So when it comes to our brave relationships, I call them brave for so many different reasons. Like sometimes we're a little bit intimidated to go and ask strangers or make new connections. But that takes bravery. Step toward it anyway. And guess what? When someone has actually accomplished something and they've gotten through that, we talk about that messy road of the ups and downs, they actually enjoy usually helping people that are starting the journey. All the literature on not only social support, but pro-social support means that the people that do the helping get more of a boost to their their mood and their well-being by helping than you getting helped. So don't rob them of that opportunity. So go out and find the people that are going to support you. That's the message.
I love that. Yeah. And I think just from probably you feel the same, I feel the same. Like if somebody asks me for help based on my experience, I love talking about it because I'm like, it just shows me it wasn't all for naught, that there was a purpose behind the pain. And that purpose is to be able to help somebody else and maybe avoid some of the pain I put myself through because, yeah, we all end up going through it. It's like, okay, here's how you can avoid it. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I love when people ask me for advice. And sometimes I'm like, what? Me? You want my advice? But okay, here it is. Yeah, I've been through that fire. I can help
Yeah,
you out. So,
exactly.
so it just shows but people people are often afraid to ask for help.
They are.
This was me along for a while. I finally got over that because I always wanted to be seen as self-sufficient and confident and competent. I shouldn't have to ask for help. But but when I realized, that that's silly, you need to you can't go through life alone. So how do people who like former me
Yeah.
get that courage to ask for help?
Yeah. I'm glad you called it silly. I'd even go a step further and call it stupid. And for a lot of people that are like, I'm so brave because I do all these like physical things, right? If people take my bravery assessment, we actually get into brave mindset, brave actions, and then brave relationships. And a part of it is being vulnerable. Are you brave enough to admit you don't know, that you've made a mistake or you need help? So a lot of people that think they're so bravado, just so brave, I'm like, actually, in this area, you need a lot of work. So I have no idea why that little background happened there. Zoom is doing all these crazy fun things where I had fireworks going behind me because I think the Zoom world really loves that comment.
Right.
So to how people can ask for help. So I learned this from a mentor. David Meltzer is kind of an influencer. The movie Jerry Maguire was made after his character. He used to be a big sports agent, but something that he taught me that was a game changer for me. So I want to share this for everyone is he said, when you find that person that has done or accomplished the thing that you want to do, he's like, go up to them and be interested before you're interesting. Because that's the first thing. Tell them that I admire the work you've done. I'd love to ask some questions. So just be interested first. And that makes people feel more comfortable anyway. Instead of me going up and going, hi, I'm Jill. I'm trying to write a book. Will you help me? Like it just feels so self-serving. So what he teaches is go up and be interested, show your admiration, why you look up to them, how their work has impacted you or whatever that is. Be curious, be interested, and then be interesting. And then you can tell a little bit about yourself, and it should include the goals that you have. And then the next step, and this is what I love the way he frames this. He goes, instead of just saying, will you help me? He says, always look for, you've taken time to get to know the other person. You've been interested. See, is there anything you could do for them? Would it be helpful if
Right.
Is there anything you could do for them, even in some small way, right?
Right.
Hopefully you can find that and then ask them this question. And this is the magic one, because everyone can feel comfortable doing this. Instead of saying, will you do this for me? Just say, do you know anyone who could help give me some tips or spend a little time giving me some do's and don'ts on how to write a book? So you're saying, do you know anyone who could help me with this?
Right.
Now, when you say that, you know that the person you're talking to can help you with it, right? Yeah. And normally they'll say, well, I can do that for you. But if they don't, maybe they don't have the bandwidth, whatever, they're going to be able to give you another name. Well, yeah, I can think of someone. Yeah, I can think of someone. And then you say, okay, that would be great. Could you please introduce me? Or could you please, if I reach out to them on my own, can I mention that you recommended that I talk to them? So that way you feel, I think that technique that I learned from Dave makes me and a lot of other people feel more confident going up to people. Like, I'm going to be interested in them. I'm going to try to bring them some value, and I'm going to tell them about my goals and ask them if they know anyone who can help me. And if they step forward, great. If not, they're going to pass me along to someone else. And then if you do that, that's networking like a champ, because then you should actually get a lead of someone who you can follow up with.
Right. Yeah, that's just being vulnerable. And I think people are just afraid. I don't know if it's our ego
Oh, it
or
is.
yeah. No, it is. So
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You mentioned something before, like, well, it's a misconception that the best way to do this is to do this on my own. And I got to figure it out on my own and all by myself. And you said it was silly and I said it was stupid. So can we dive into that? Like,
yeah.
why? Why is it better to ask for help? So at least from a scientific perspective, if we believe we can do something and then we take some steps forward and we know we're going to overcome challenges, if we have people there supporting us as we're going through the ups and downs, the likelihood of you sticking with it and having the grit is much greater if you have people there. So if you say, I want to do it by myself, the probability is you'll be less successful than if you're asking for help. So we are social humans, we need those relationships. The best relationships are based on vulnerability. So we have to be brave enough or smart enough or serious enough to know, here's what I know and here's the help that I need, and ask for it. And it's going to accelerate our development. So, because I think so many people, like probably you and me, we just want to be super successful. And so we want to do it on our own. But I just want everyone to know that you are going to end up shooting yourself in the foot. I just said that to someone who does firearms training on the weekends. You are going to slow yourself down. Your success is going to be so much slower. You'll probably figure it out, but it's going to take you so much longer. So you want to accelerate your success, you reaching your potential. You gotta ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't until I finally was like, why? And a big part of me was, well, I don't want to inconvenience anyone. Everybody's busy. I'll just figure it out. But then I hired a mentor, and that was probably the big, shining moment on that situation in my life, where it's like, okay, granted, I was paying them, but at the same time, it shined the light on the fact that I wasn't seeking the help that I needed to move forward in my business and my career and in other areas of life. And now, like, I won't do anything without a mentor and my accountability partner who I love.
Yeah.
And so everything is like now checks and balances in life. And what do you think about this? And can you help me with that? And, and to break that cycle of being afraid of asking for help because I thought it made me seem weak or stupid or small. I'm like, no, it's actually smarter to ask for help.
It is.
So
Yeah, and I think we're kind of touching on this concept of psychological safety. Like if we don't feel safe being vulnerable out of fear of being embarrassed or a negative consequence to that. I mean, that's why we don't. So it's like we want to be vulnerable in the relationships where we kind of make it the norm of saying like, okay, if you're going to be my mentor and I'm going to be the mentee, you almost want to create those norms up front, right? Where I want to be able to, or the mentor should be saying to you, like, I want you to come to me with questions. I want you to call me when you're struggling. I want you to call me when you have a win. I want to hear all of it, right? So a lot of it is, we got to feel safe being vulnerable with certain people. So that's why we got to curate that tribe, because we're going to curate those perfect people that have done it before, care about you, and you've got those, that relationship with them that you can share that.
yeah, I love that. So Jill, so the journey from Marines to mindset coach, how did you decide that this was your career path post Marines?
Yeah. I'll give you kind of the short version. So I was getting out of the Marine Corps because I was getting married and I decided I wanted to get out and become a civilian. So my first job out of the Marine Corps was selling drugs, like the legal kind, the pharmaceutical kind, right? I didn't even want to go into sales. I kind of thought I was like, I'm a captain of Marines. I'm above sales. And what's this medical stuff? But there's a lot of jobs, and my recruiter encouraged me to go and interview. And the second manager I interviewed with, his name is Jonathan Haynes, was a former Marine Corps officer. So we just hit it off, and I fell in love with the industry. I worked there for 13 years. 14 years. And my last job in that industry was doing leadership development. So like I did well, I was successful. I moved up in different roles. And my last role, because I benefited so much from leadership development, is I was doing leadership development internally. I took the leap, spread my wings, started my own leadership development company.
Oh, wow.
So it's been 11 years since I've had that company. And then it was about 3 years ago, part of my job as someone who helps develop leaders and culture in organizations to drive results is I have to know the science. Like I have to know, the latest in organizational psychology and industrial psychology. I mean, I have to be the nerd to know all that stuff so I know what to teach. And I stumbled upon this positive psychology. Positive psychology. So it was Sean Aker who had this TED Talk, hilarious. He's got this book called, and I read it and he's like, wait a second. He's like, he was teaching that you're not happy after you accomplish the goal. You need to be happy. And that's the rocket fuel to accomplish your goals. And I was like, that's what I'm trying to help my clients do, help them accomplish. Right. So that was just like where I got hooked. And then I started reading and it led to me getting my master's in applied positive psychology at Penn. And then when you go through, at least the master's program I went through, you have to do a capstone at the end to decide what little slice of positive psychology. So I decided to take that deep dive into bravery. So that was my research because I feel like it's kind of an unmet need because we're getting too soft and people. So I guess it's the Marine in me coming back. Like I love it. Just stepping people up. So that's kind of like the long road to bravery. It
was almost like full circle because that brave and to show up on campus with bright pink shorts was maybe not an intentional
I know, like
decision of bravery, but you overcame it. And that you kind of was that feather in your cap. Like, hey, if I can overcome bright pink shorts with fellow Marines, I can overcome anything.
And talk about a full circle moment. Cause you made me think of this because you do firearms training on the weekend. So one of my favorite things, like a week in the Marine Corps, we would go to the range, or 2 weeks a year, we'd go to the range. So we would just be able to shoot for 2 weeks, which is the best 2 weeks of the year. And I was great at shooting. And I think the second or third date with my husband, we went shooting and I haven't been shooting since. And now I have my 2 daughters, 18 and 20, and they want to go shooting. So like full circle, like I can't wait to go back, but you know what? I need to go to someone like you. Cause like, I'm like, I have not touched a firearm in so long. Like I need to go back to the basics. So that's a really good first full circle moment.
I can help you out with that. So
awesome.
We'll do that offline. So why I teach firearms and how I got started was, in 2020 and the world was going crazy, a lot of women were feeling unsafe. So I said, well, I'm going to start a women's self-defense company. I'm going to do this firearm stuff. Started working with a couple excellent mentors who got me through, helped me with the NRA certification, the DOJ certifications, the sheriff stuff, and CCW. And you mentioned that you have 2 young daughters because this is kind of a uncertain world we live in right now. So how do you kind of reinforce bravery in them, and why does it matter, across the board? Because people don't want to live in fear and paranoia, but you also want to be brave and prepared at the same time.
Yeah. I completely agree. Like, when it comes, I know a lot of people have different opinions on firearms, but at least what keeps us safer is knowing how to use them. And I think that's what I really want for my girls, is not to be intimidated. And I don't want like a tragic accident because they don't know how to use, a basic weapon. And also there is sport to it. Like, going to a range and learning how to use the weapon and, and seeing, how tight your little group can be. It's, it's something that's
thrilling.
Fun. It's thrilling. I know. And I'm competitive, so I love it. I bring it.
Yeah. Most of my students are women in their 50s, 60s. My oldest student is 83. And some have never picked up a firearm. And just for them and so that's them stepping into their bravery to conquer a massive fear.
Yeah.
And then to go, when can I come back? When's our next lesson? I'm like, okay, So
and the little things, like the impact of that, they're going to walk out of there and their shoulders are going to be back a little bit more. They're going to be feeling a little bit better. And then that feeling of pride and more self-confidence, that's going to spill over to the next thing that they do. So that's where the
Mhm.
bravery effect is. Like, like I encourage people to take all those little micro moments, like,
Mhm.
just something you're a little bit shy of doing, just do it. And you're like, wow, that wasn't so bad. I did that. So it just has that compounding effect.
Mhm.
So in all those little moments, right? Even though when you think the moment doesn't matter, right, to do this or do that, like I had a little micro moment, like even though I'm the bravery expert, there's fears I have. I went to
Oh.
Chicago. I flew into Chicago, and I always go to the northern suburbs because that's where my biggest client is. So I
Mhm.
go into O'Hare and I go up there, but then I had a friend who lives downtown, and I heard they've got a train system that's safe and works. But like for me, I just like I get off the plane and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna do the train. Like, where is it? What's going on? And I'm just thinking, no, I'll just take an Uber. I'll just take an Uber. But in that moment, I'm just like, this is silly. I can figure this out. I'm a grown woman. It's not like I had a fear that it was dangerous, but it was just the
Right.
fear of the unknown. So
Yeah.
like I just did it. I'm like walk down. And then this is where you use brave relationships. I ask people like, I have no idea where I'm going. Like,
Mhm.
you look like you're like, I'm trying to get down here to this line. And they're like, yep, you're going the right way. So I asked for help along the way. I
Mhm.
did it. And then I got out of there and I'm like, I just did that. Right. So just the little things like day in and day out, those little things where you feel like you're going to hesitate because there's a more comfortable way. I want you to choose the uncomfortable path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe keep record of it too, because like when you do something big, like okay, show up at a firearms class, never picked up a gun, it's always been a big scary thing, maybe from what you learned as a child, or
Yep.
maybe someone around you said, "Oh, you can never do that." You just said, "Well, I'm going to try it anyway." But yeah, they walk away, shoulders back. So that's kind of a bigger moment. But what you describe is like a more kind of again the micro moment. Like, okay,
Micro. Hmm.
the easy thing would be call an Uber. The more challenging thing would be figuring out this train, asking people, like stepping out of my comfort zone, asking people, am I going the right way? Or if not,
Yeah.
like,
Figuring it out.
yeah. But I don't think people realize those tiny micro moments of bravery that they
Oh,
experience every single day.
yeah. And it adds up. And it adds up. And I know we need to wrap up here, but I think the last little thing here is I just want everyone to know that when you choose in those micro moments to be brave, you're doing little exercises in like the bravery part of your brain. Like
Mhm.
we have neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
So specifically, there's a part of the brain, the ACC, and then also our prefrontal cortex. And it's basically the grit, switch in our brain. So when you do something that's a little bit hard, it's going to be hard. But each time you do something that's a little uncomfortable and hard, that part of your brain, more pathways go to it. That neuroplasticity. So our brain adjusts. So just the more you do it, it's like a muscle. You can't go into the
Mhm.
gym and lift once and be like, well, my biceps just are not big. Well, I'm just going to quit. Like, you just got to, that's why I want every day the little habits of doing the little bit of a hard thing and it'll become easier. So the more you do uncomfortable, hard things, the easier
Mhm.
it will be to do hard, uncomfortable things.
Yeah. So, what is the big takeaway for the audience on bravery?
The, the big takeaway is that anyone can be brave
Mhm.
and it's like a muscle. Work at it each day, do little things that are outside of your discomfort, and the impact of that, the effect that it has over time, is going to impact your success, your impact, but most importantly, your life satisfaction. So you can look back on your life without regret. So it's too important for us not to pay attention to
Mhm.
because it has such a huge effect on all aspects of our life. And so that's a message. That's what I'm trying to help people do. And I try to give people like little practical tips. So if anyone like follows me, like I give like little tidbits of like takes about a minute of like little tips that they can do each day because there's all these little like micro habits they can do each day to help them be brave.
I love that. Well, tell everyone where they can find you, your book when it comes out, if they can pre-order it.
Yeah. So I have a website. It's just my first name, last name, JillSchulman.com. It's Schulman is SCHULMAN, just one L. So on my website, there's that free bravery assessment. I've got some free resources. You can click in the book, or you can buy the book anywhere. Like it's the Bravery Effect. It's the only book called The Bravery Effect. So you'll see it. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, like anywhere. You can pre-order it now. It doesn't come out until August 26th, 2025. Then I'm on all social media platforms. I'm getting out of my comfort zone myself. and I'm all over like all the different platforms. So if people follow me, I make a commitment 5 days a week to do a little post to give you that little morning message or whatever, so that you can be reminded to be brave each day.
I love that. Well, gosh, thank you so much for being here. I feel like I could keep asking you all these questions because it's such an important topic. I just don't think we realize how, big bravery is in our everyday lives. We think it's this big, like you said, jump into a burning building to save the kid, but it's really just every single day moment. So thank you for reminding us.
Yeah. Thank
All
you
of
for
that.
having me. Thank you for
Yeah.
giving me your platform to spread the message. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I'll include all of the information in the show notes so people
Sounds
will
great.
read it. So
All right.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So, gosh, what an incredible interview. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. And if you would please, if you know someone who needs to hear this message, who could use a little more bravery and courage in their lives, please share it with them, because I know when somebody shares a good podcast episode with you, because I tend to share podcasts with other people all the time, when someone shares a really good one with me, with information, stuff I need to hear, I know that they care about me. So share this, like this. Make sure that you follow this podcast. And next week, I will be speaking with a menopause expert. So, ladies, if you're going through menopause, and most of my audience is, or you've been through it, you are not going to miss this, because we're going to break down all things menopause, the mood swings, the brain fog, the misconceptions, and what you can do about it. So, tune in next week, and I will see you then, my friends.